Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of How the United States Military is Getting After. I'm your host, Louis Rossman, and today I'm going to be following up in a video that I did 2 days ago talking about right to repair in the United States military, focusing on a letter that the Secretary of the Army sent to the Department of Defense, and they're talking about something that we talked about here 4 years ago on this channel when Joe Biden signed an executive order in July of 2021 discussing right to repair not just in the military, but also in the agricultural fields. Unfortunately, Joe Biden didn't get very far with that executive order. Right to repair in the military never became a real thing, and that sucks because if you have an organization that is designed to defend the country, but also have potentially attack and deploy around the world, you really want the equipment that they have to fucking work. And when we're talking about shit like fraud, waste, and abuse on a regular basis, when I hear those three buzzwords all the time, one of the problems with those three buzzwords is when we're talking about fraud, waste, and abuse, and we're looking at these little things like $80,000 at a Caesar's Palace hotel that was used for over 100 different teachers to be able to attend a conference in Las Vegas, we're missing the point. We're missing the picture of where a lot of it is, which is where you have an agency with an over $700 billion budget that regularly fails its audits, that has equipment that they pay $16+ billion for that they're not able to fix. That is a big problem, not just for the money that's wasted, but for the fact that if you need to be able to deploy tomorrow, if you need to be able to bomb this other random place or defend ourselves, you need equipment that works. And here's one of the things when it comes to authorized repair. When we're talking about people that are deployed in Afghanistan, they're getting shot at and bombed, you know who's not there? The authorized repair people from the manufacturer. The Genius Bar is at the Apple Store. The Genius Bar is not in Afghanistan. The people that are going to repair this equipment in the field are the people that are in the United States military. They are not the people from the manufacturer. Sometimes maybe, most of the time not. The people in the United States military need to be able to repair this equipment. This was a great step forward from the United States Secretary of the Army under Trump, and let's see if we have different results here than we did under Biden. You never know. This is talking about readiness for the United States military, and when you scroll down, you'll see that one of the items to improve readiness is, and I quote, identify and propose contract modifications for right to repair provisions. Seek to include right to repair provisions in all existing contracts and also ensure these provisions are included in all new contracts. Do note the vocabulary there. Not some contracts, not for this equipment, but not that equipment because that equipment's special. Nothing like that. They said for all contracts. And this is a very important one, and unfortunately one that's been cut against recently, because if you take a look at Advamed, a trade association lobbying whatever the fuck for the medical industry, you'll see that they released a report that says the following. They're not just saying this privately, they are bragging publicly. Right to repair, prevented. Advamed successfully prevented the inclusion of a right to repair provision in the final National Defense Authorization Act, safeguarding the integrity of medical devices. To achieve this outcome, the Federal Affairs team met with key staff members from the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee to emphasize the risks of unauthorized repairs to device safety and thus to patients. This advocacy effort was particularly impactful, and a few others were actively advocating against the provision. So here what they're saying is that one of the reasons they were able to win is because there were very few people in the room. And unfortunately, one of the things I've said over and over again, it's not about bribery or anything else. It's not about the crazy backroom deals. At the end of the day, a lot of the time it comes down to the fact that nobody showed up, which is what you saw with many of my hearings. When I was going to Maine, in Augusta, Maine, and back in about February of 2020, one of the things you heard Joel Stetka say is, I've heard nobody come here from my state. You had 20 different lobbyists showing up from all over the place in Maine, from CompTIA to everybody else, talking about how right to repair is bad. The only person that showed up to say right to repair was good? Me. And one other dude that was there. Because normal people have lives, they have families, they have businesses, they have jobs. They can't show up at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday to discuss something with their fucking senator. And unfortunately, the reality of that is stuff like this happens. They ensure that only authorized repairs are permitted that protects patient safety from risks associated with improperly maintained or modified medical devices. This is especially crucial for life-supporting devices and high-risk technology to provide precise maintenance to function safely and effectively. And one of the problems that you see over here when they're talking about all of this, they're not going to give you any examples. They're not going to bring up facts. They're not going to bring up evidence. They're not going to say that this is when this happened, and when this happened, this bad thing happened. So when I show up to these legislative hearings, one of the things I like to do is I like to explain the actual problem. Here's a specific issue where this specific chip is not available. This specific chip being not available for $5 to $15 means that I have to replace the entire motherboard, which Apple will say is $1,500. Here's how I'm able to save you money. Here's how this directly harms you. Here's how this means even if you get it fixed by the manufacturer, you get it fixed by the manufacturer, but they don't recover your data, whereas I could recover your data if I'm able to get access to that chip. I'm able to come there with evidence, facts, and one of the things here is that when you actually look at the facts and the evidence that never made it into this congressional hearing, apparently, here's what you find. This is from the FDA, because I know that I am a partisan right to repair person who loves right to repair, always talks about it. Let's take a look at what the people who are paid to research this for a living, who are experts, say. Whether or not you like the FDA, do you think they have less or more credibility than a trade industry lobbyist who makes more money if the devices are not repairable? Let's take a look at what they said over here. The FDA charges the Secretary of Health and Human Services, acting through the Commissioner of Food and Drugs, to issue a report on the continued quality, safety, and effectiveness of medical devices with respect to servicing. FDA has considered information, including but not limited to information presented at a public workshop, responses to requests for comments, and evaluation of objective evidence related to the quality, safety, and effectiveness of medical device servicing. In the compilation of this report, stakeholders have differing views on quality, safety, and effectiveness of servicing performed by original equipment manufacturers and third-party entities, and the need to imposing additional regulation. Based on the above information, or available information, we have concluded the currently available objective evidence is not sufficient to conclude whether or not there is a widespread public health concern related to servicing, including by third-party services of medical devices, that would justify imposing additional different burdensome regulatory requirements at this time. Rather, the objective evidence indicates that many OEMs and third-party entities provide high-quality, safe, and effective servicing of medical devices. High-quality, safe, and effective servicing of medical devices from third parties. And the end point. The continued availability of third-party entities to service and repair medical devices is critical to the functioning of the U.S. healthcare system. And I repeat, the continued availability of third-party entities to service and repair medical devices is critical to the functioning of the United States healthcare system. Why did this document never make it into the hands of those Congress members when they were being told lies by members of a trade organization who make more money if devices are not fixed? Because we weren't there. And that's unfortunate. One of the things I think needs to happen is there needs to be some sort of societal shaming that occurs. The Overton window has to shift so that when a company is actually perpetuating fraud, waste, and abuse, and they're doing it in public, and they're bragging about the fact that they have made it more difficult for somebody within the United States military to be able to repair medical equipment that will be used to service and help members in the field, keep people from dying, there's shame attached to that. I'm not talking about harassing them, following them home, throwing tomatoes at them. I'm talking about something where they just realize to themselves, I don't want to put my name on that.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
They feel the same way about that they would feel if I were to trip somebody who was walking with crutches just because I found it funny and then I posted that as a short to my YouTube channel. I wouldn't do that. I would feel shame doing that. And that's the same way that they should feel. Regardless of what you think about me, right to repair, for laptops, cell phones, everything else, I want you to imagine this just for a moment. Block out everything you dislike about me for a moment. When you look at your healthcare bill, when you look at your insurance costs going up every single year, when you look at what your insurance company sends you, this is the bill for your hospital stay. This is how much we paid and everything else. How much of that do you think is fraud, waste, and abuse? How much of that do you think is a $25,000 to $35,000 hospital bed where the little motor that allows you to go up and down that costs $200, when that thing breaks, you got to replace the entire thing at $35,000? How much of that do you think is a $100,000 device that dies because of a $50 power supply and they got to replace the entire thing? How much of that do you think is they're not allowed to change the IP address on a fucking MRI machine without paying a technician to come out there over $1,000? That's a big part of the issue. The fraud, waste, and abuse are in the places that we're not looking for it, in some of the most expensive line items in the entire United States budget.
This bill is an oil pressure switch that NASA used to buy. Well, their oil switch with all of the cabling costs $328. This oil switch, we paid over $10,000 for it.
So what accounts for that huge difference?
Gouging. What else?
Let's say a hospital has a finite budget. What are they going to do if they're not able to fix something that costs $35,000 for a few $100, but rather have to replace the entire thing? They have a finite budget. That means that either A, they have less equipment to be able to actually perform life-saving medical treatments on people, which means less healthcare, which means less availability, which means more people being hurt, having poor health, or dying. Or behind door number two, they simply raise their prices. When they raise their prices, that means that the insurance company is either going to charge you more money in insurance, or they're simply going to deny more claims. Denying more claims means that you have more Luigis, and you wind up having people that just decline for coverage and don't get treatment. This has real life effects. By looking at the unproven, which is that, what if somebody breaks something? While ignoring the proven and the seen, which is they are very good at repairing medical devices. And B, how many people are being left behind right now health-wise because they are not able to get the treatment they need because this equipment doesn't work? They're screwing you, and they're laughing as they do it. There needs to be a societal shame attached to this. The Overton window must shift so that when somebody is advocating for this type of fraud, waste, and abuse in this industry, when they are lying to do it, when they are ignoring all of the available evidence to pull the wool over the eyes of Congress people that don't know better or maybe get paid to not know better, I don't know. I'll let you decide what you think on that one. There should be shame attached to it. You should be the type of person where, I don't want to sit next to you on a bus. I don't want to eat dinner with you. I'm going to walk to the other side of the street if I see you walking there. I'm not going to be friends with you. The people that wrote this type of report, I'm not saying you harass them. I'm not saying you be mean to them. I'm just saying I'm probably going to look at that person if I meet them the same way I look at a person that decided to trip somebody who's walking with crutches for the fun of it. Because at the end of the day, that's the end result of what they're doing. This hurts people, and it's not funny. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. Last thing before I call it quits here, as I've said, I am trying to take right to own and turn it into a more mainstream thing, and in order to do that, I do have to make some concessions. I have never done social media properly or well, and I'm missing all the other social media platforms I'm supposed to have, so I have started a profile. It's an Instagram. Oh, it's so gross. It's The Real Rossman over here, Instagram.com/TheRealRossman. If you use this site, which none of you are, because again, the people that watch this YouTube channel are never going to log in Instagram. This is for people who don't watch my channel, who want nice 20-second clips that go over this rather than 7 or 30-minute rants. If you do use this website, install like WaterFox, Brave, LibreWolf, whatever the hell else you want to do. Use a browser of your choice. Install something privacy-focused. Get a canvas blocker. Get an ad blocker. Wear a giant web condom. Make sure that you never use this website without protection. In all seriousness, I am going to be taking some different approaches to try and make this get a little bit more mainstream. ConsumerRights.wiki, as you've seen, is a website that documents all these instances that I talk about, but it does so in a neutral tone of voice so that even if somebody doesn't like me or they don't like my presentation, they could read this and get just the facts without my attitude, without my my thoughts or everything else that for lack of a better way, is an acquired taste about my personality and character. And I am looking forward to seeing the results that I can get as a result of not being so stubborn and finally trying a couple of different ways to do this. Personally, I don't understand the appeal of all the short content. I'm just saying that, like, in my experience dealing with people, most people prefer 7 to 15-minute Lewis to 20-second Lewis. I've gotten complaints about 20-second Lewis before, but what the hell? We'll try this here. It's a different domain. We'll see if I get different results. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.